The pattern started when I was 12. My brother Marcus got a MacBook Pro for his birthday. I got a used Dell laptop from Goodwill. You wouldn't understand what to do with a real computer anyway, Dad had said, ruffling Marcus's hair while barely glancing at me. 20 years later, that pattern was still playing out. I sat in the corner of Dad's living room during his 60th birthday party, my fingers moving across my laptop keyboard. The familiar hum of productivity surrounded me while my family celebrated without me. They'd long ago stopped asking what I was working on. "Sarah's still on that computer," Aunt Linda whispered to Mom loud enough for me to hear. "At 32 you'd think she'd have figured life out by now." Mom sighed. "I've tried talking to her. She insists this internet company thing is going somewhere." Marcus stood at the center of the room, his arm around his wife Jennifer, both of them radiating success. He was a senior marketing director at a pharmaceutical company. Jennifer was a corporate lawyer. Their combined income was probably around $400,000 a year. Respectable. Impressive to our family. "Another beer, little sis?" Marcus walked over, his tone dripping with condescension. He was only 3 years older, but he'd never let me forget it. "Or are you too busy changing the world?" I didn't look up from my screen. "I'm good, thanks." "Still working on that app thing?" He leaned over my shoulder. "What is it this time? Social media for cats? A dating app for tech nerds?" "Something like that," I said quietly. Jennifer joined him, wine glass in hand. "Marcus told me you've been working on this for how long now?" 7 years. 8, I corrected. She exchanged a look with Marcus. The one that said, "Poor thing, she still hasn't figured it out." 8 years, Marcus repeated, shaking his head. "Sarah, at some point you have to accept that maybe this isn't your calling. I mean, how many failed startups is this now?" "For 5. 3, I said. The other 2 hadn't failed. I'd sold them. For amounts my family would never believe. But I'd learned years ago that explaining only invited more mockery." Dad clinked his glass, calling everyone to attention. "I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate with me. 60 years old, and I'm surrounded by the people who matter most." He went around the room, praising each family member. Marcus and his successful career. My cousin David and his new home purchase. My younger sister Emma and her engagement to a dentist. When he got to me, he paused. "And Sarah? Well, Sarah's still figuring things out. But we love her anyway." Polite laughter rippled through the room. I kept my expression neutral, my fingers still moving across the keyboard. The afternoon dragged on. I sat in my corner, responding to urgent messages from my CTO and our lead investors while my family discussed mortgages, vacation plans, and career promotions around me. "I'm worried about her," I heard Mom say to Aunt Linda in the kitchen. "She lives in that tiny apartment, drives a 10-year-old Honda, barely makes ends meet." At this age, Marcus already owned a house. "Some people are just less ambitious," Aunt Linda replied. "Less capable of traditional success." I'd heard variations of this conversation for years. They didn't know about the apartment building in downtown Seattle that I owned. Or that the Honda was paid off while Marcus was drowning in a luxury car lease. Or that my checking account balance had more zeros than their collective net worth. I kept my wealth hidden for the same reason I kept my head down. Because the moment they knew the truth, everything would change. And I wasn't ready for that change until I could make it matter. Around 6 p.m. Marcus approached me again. This time he brought reinforcements. Dad, Uncle Robert, and Cousin David. "We need to talk to you," Marcus said, pulling up a chair. The others formed a semicircle around me. "An intervention." I closed my laptop. "About what?" "About your future," Dad said. His tone was gentle, which somehow made it worse. "Sarah, we're concerned. You're 32 years old, you've been chasing this tech dream for almost a decade, and where has it gotten you?" "I'm happy with where I am," I said evenly. Marcus laughed. "Happy? Sure, you're broke. You live in a studio apartment in a bad neighborhood. You drive a car that's older than some of our kids. You're not even dating anyone because you spend every waking moment on these projects that never pan out." "My projects are doing fine." "Fine." Uncle Robert leaned forward. "Sarah, I looked up your company. Neuralflow, right? Your website looks like it was made in 2005. You have, 12 employees? That's not a company, that's a hobby." I stayed silent. Our actual website was completely different, hidden behind enterprise security. The public-facing page was deliberately minimal. Our 12 employees were actually 247 of the best engineers in the industry. We got you an interview, Dad said, sliding a business card across the table. It's with Robert's company. Entry-level position in their IT department. $35,000 a year to start, but it's stable. It's real. I looked at the card. Didn't touch it. It's time to grow up, Marcus said. Stop pretending you're going to be the next Steve Jobs. Most startups fail, Sarah. 90% of them. You've been lucky to make it this long, but the dream is over. I appreciate the concern, I said carefully. But I'm not interested in the position. Of course you're not, Marcus snapped. Because you're delusional. You actually think this garage startup of yours is going somewhere. It is somewhere. Where? He challenged. Show me. Prove it. Show me one shred of evidence that Neuralflow is anything more than another failed Silicon Valley fantasy. I could have shown him. I had the documents on my laptop. The term sheets from our Series C funding round. The partnership agreements with Fortune 500 companies. The patent approvals for our AI architecture that was about to revolutionize natural language processing. Instead I said, I can't. Not yet. The room erupted in laughter. Not yet, Marcus mimicked. Sarah, there is no yet. There's just you wasting your life on a fantasy while the rest of us live in the real world. Jennifer stepped forward, her lawyer voice activated. Sarah, I'm going to be very direct with you. I've seen dozens of failed entrepreneurs come through our firm's bankruptcy proceedings. They all had the same story. Just one more year, just one more investor, just wait until you see what happens next. And then they lose everything. I'm not going to lose everything. You already have. Marcus threw his hands up. You've lost 8 years you could have spent building a real career. You've lost relationships because you're married to your work. You've lost the respect of this family because you refuse to accept reality. Dad put his hand on my shoulder. It was meant to be comforting. It felt patronizing. Sweetheart, he said softly. We love you. We want what's best for you. And what's best is for you to let this dream go and join the real world. Take the job. Get a steady paycheck. Start building actual stability. I looked around at their faces. Every single one of them was so certain. So convinced that they understood my situation better than I did. I understand your concern, I said. But I'm going to keep working on Neuralflow. Marcus slammed his hand on the coffee table. For how long? How many more years are you going to waste? How much longer until you admit you failed? I haven't failed. You're 32 years old with no savings, no house, no husband, no children, no career trajectory. If that's not failure, what is? The assumption that I had no savings almost made me laugh. My personal investment portfolio alone was worth more than every asset in this room combined. Success looks different for different people, I said. Bullshit. Marcus was red-faced now. Success is success. It's money, stability, respect. You have none of those things. You're a failure, Sarah. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can start fixing your life. The entire party had gone silent. Everyone was watching now. Mom stepped forward. Marcus, that's enough. No, Mom. Someone needs to tell her the truth. She's been coddled for too long, allowed to live in this fantasy world where her little computer projects matter. They don't matter. She doesn't matter. Not until she grows up and gets a real job. I stood up slowly, closing my laptop and tucking it under my arm. Where are you going? Dad asked. Home. I have work to finish. Work, Marcus scoffed. She calls it work. Sarah, you're not working. You're playing. You're a child pretending to be an entrepreneur. I headed toward the door. Emma caught my arm. Don't leave, she whispered. They're just worried about you. I know, I said. But I really do have work to finish. Marcus followed me to the door. This is it, Sarah. Last chance. Take the job or we're done trying to help you. We're done pretending your little garage startup is real. I turned to face him. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, you can stop pretending. I left before he could respond. The drive home was quiet. I lived in South Lake Union now, not the bad neighborhood they imagined. My studio apartment was actually a 2-bedroom in a luxury building. I'd bought it cash 3 years ago. But my family never visited, so they never knew. My phone buzzed continuously. Messages from my leadership team. CTO, Google's final offer is on the table. Board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. CFO, all investors approved. This is really happening. General Counsel, acquisition documents are ready for signature. Tomorrow would be the biggest day of my life. Google's $3.8 billion acquisition of Neuralflow would be announced. It would make headlines in every tech publication in the world. The deal had been in negotiation for 4 months, under absolute secrecy. I'd built Neuralflow from nothing. 8 years of 18-hour days. 8 years of living below my means while pouring everything into the company. 8 years of being dismissed, mocked, and pitted by my family who couldn't see what was right in front of them. The irony was that I could have proven them wrong at any time. I could have shown them my bank statements, my equity portfolio, my ownership stake in one of the most promising AI companies in the world. But I'd waited. Because I wanted the revelation to be undeniable. Public. Irrefutable. Tomorrow it would be. I spent the evening preparing. The board meeting would take place at 9 a.m. The public announcement would go live at 10 a.m. Pacific. By 10:01, every major news outlet would be covering it. My phone rang around midnight. Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. And again. Finally I answered. What? I'm sorry, he said. I was too harsh earlier. Okay. Sarah, I'm worried about you. We all are. You're wasting your life on this fantasy and I can't watch you crash and burn anymore. I'm not going to crash and burn. You already have. You just don't see it yet. Everyone at the party was talking about it after you left. Even mom and dad are starting to realize that you might need professional help. Professional help. Like a therapist. Someone who can help you work through this delusion and accept reality. I sat in my living room looking out at the Seattle skyline. Somewhere out there, the largest tech company in the world was preparing to write me a check for $3.8 billion. I appreciate your concern, I said. Take the job, Sarah. Please. For your own good. I'll think about it. I hung up. The next morning I dressed carefully. Simple black suit, minimal jewelry. The board meeting was virtual, which meant I could take it from my home office. At 8:45 I logged into the secure video conference. 23 faces appeared on screen. My board of directors, Google's acquisition team, our investors and our lawyers. Good morning, everyone, I said. Let's make history. The meeting took 45 minutes. Every detail had been negotiated in advance. Today was just the formal approval. One by one, board members voted. Yes, yes, yes. At 9:43 a.m., the acquisition was officially approved. At 9:55, Google's PR team sent out the press release. At 10:02 my phone exploded. Texts, calls, emails, messages from journalists, investors, former colleagues, and people I hadn't spoken to in years. The first headline appeared on TechCrunch. Google acquires Neuralflow in $3.8 billion deal, largest tech acquisition of the year. Then Forbes, meet Sarah Chin, the 32-year-old founder behind Google's biggest bet on AI. The Wall Street Journal, Neuralflow sale signals major shift in natural language processing technology. By 10:15 I was trending on Twitter. My phone rang. Sarah? Sarah, are you seeing this? There's a tech company with your name. That's my company, Mom. Silence. Your company? Yes. Neuralflow. The one you've been watching me work on for 8 years. But the news says it's sold for, they're saying, $3.8 billion. Yes. I could hear her breathing. Mom, I need to go. I have interviews scheduled with CNBC and Bloomberg. Wait. Sarah, I don't understand. I'll explain later. I really do need to go. I hung up. The media requests were overwhelming. Every major tech publication wanted an interview. But I'd already committed to a live segment on CNBC at 2 p.m. At 1:30 I drove to their Seattle studio. The producer met me at the door, her eyes wide. Ms. Chin, we're so excited to have you. This story is blowing up. You're everywhere. The interview was straightforward. The anchor asked about the technology, the acquisition process, what was next for me. I answered professionally, giving nothing away about the personal context. You're 32 years old, the anchor said. What would you say to young entrepreneurs watching right now? I'd say that success rarely looks the way people expect it to. Trust your vision even when no one else can see it. By the time I left the studio, the story had reached full viral status. Every news outlet was covering it. Business Insider had published a profile. The billionaire founder who nobody saw coming. Sarah Chen's journey from garage startup to Google's biggest acquisition. My phone rang again. Marcus. I answered on speaker while driving. Sarah. His voice was strange. Tight. I saw the news. I figured you might. Is it real? Yes. $3.8 billion. Yes. This whole time you've been building a billion-dollar company. Yes. Long silence. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? He didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. Marcus, I need to go. I have a call with my financial advisors in 10 minutes. Sir, wait. I'm sorry. For yesterday. For everything. I didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked. You assumed. You decided what my life was worth without ever actually looking at it. I'm sorry. I know. I'll talk to you later. I hung up. Over the next week the story grew. Forbes published a full feature. Inside Neuralflow. How Sarah Chen built AI's most valuable startup in obscurity. The article included details my family hadn't known. How I'd founded the company at 24. How I'd raised money from top-tier Silicon Valley investors. How our technology was already being used by 47 Fortune 500 companies. How I'd turned down acquisition offers from Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple before finally accepting Google's bid. It also mentioned my personal wealth. After the acquisition, my net worth was estimated at $2.1 billion. I was one of the youngest self-made female billionaires in the country. My family's reaction evolved in stages. First came the shock. Phone calls and texts of disbelief. How is this possible? Why didn't you tell us? Then came the guilt. Especially from Marcus. Long rambling voicemails about how sorry he was, how he'd been wrong, how proud he was of me. Then came the request. Distant relatives I barely knew suddenly wanted to reconnect. Cousins asked for career advice. Uncle Robert wanted to discuss investment opportunities. I didn't respond to most of them. 2 weeks after the announcement, Mom showed up at my apartment. She'd finally learned where I actually lived. Sarah, she said when I opened the door. Why didn't you tell me? I let her inside. She looked around at my apartment. The genuine hardwood floors, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the view of Lake Union. You've been living here? This whole time. For 3 years. But you always said you had a studio apartment. You assumed I had a studio apartment. I never corrected you because it didn't matter. She sat down on my couch looking lost. I don't understand. Why hide it? Why let us think you were struggling? Because I wasn't struggling. I was building something. And every time I tried to talk about it, I was mocked, dismissed, or pitted. Eventually, I stopped trying. We were worried about you. No, Mom. You were embarrassed by me. There's a difference. He started crying. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't comfort her. I wasn't cruel, but I wasn't warm either. This moment wasn't about making her feel better. What happens now? She asked. Now I decide what comes next. I have offers from 6 different tech companies who want me on their board. I'm considering starting a new venture. I'm meeting with venture capital firms who want me as a partner. And your family? I thought about that. About Marcus's intervention. About Dad's job offer. About the years of condescension and dismissal. I haven't decided yet, I said honestly. The next family gathering was Dad's 60th birthday do-over. He insisted on hosting again, claiming he wanted to celebrate properly, now that he knew the truth about my success. I arrived late. The party was already in full swing. The moment I walked in, the room went silent. Everyone stared. Marcus approached slowly like I might bite. Sarah. Thanks for coming. Happy birthday, Dad. Thank you, sweetheart. He hugged me awkwardly. I'm so proud of you. I've always been proud of you. That was a lie, but I let it pass. The evening was surreal. People who'd ignored me for years suddenly wanted to hear every detail of my success story. Relatives who'd dismissed my work now claimed they'd always known I'd do something big. Uncle Robert cornered me by the drinks. Sarah, I've been thinking. My company is looking to expand our tech infrastructure. Maybe Neuralflow's technology could. Neuralflow is Google's now, I interrupted. I don't control it anymore. Right. But surely you could put in a good word. No. His face fell. No. No. I'm not going to use my connections to benefit people who spent years telling me I was wasting my life. I walked away before he could respond. Marcus found me on the back porch. He'd been drinking. I'm an asshole, he announced. Yes. I mean it. Everything I said to you, everything I thought about your life. I was wrong. Completely wrong. Yes. Sarah, I'm trying to apologize. I know. But an apology doesn't erase 8 years of contempt. He flinched. What do you want me to say? Nothing. There's nothing to say. You showed me exactly who you are and what you think of me. That doesn't change just because the numbers are bigger than you expected. I was worried about you. No, Marcus. You were embarrassed by me. You thought I made you look bad. You wanted me to fit into your definition of success so you wouldn't have to explain me to your friends. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Because we both knew it was true. Can we start over? He asked quietly. I don't think so. Sarah. You called me a failure. You said I didn't matter. You organized an intervention to force me into an entry-level IT job because you were so certain that you understood my life better than I did. You don't get to take that back just because you were wrong about the numbers. I left him on the porch. Inside, Emma pulled me aside. She was the only family member who'd never mocked my work, even if she hadn't understood it. Are you okay? She asked. I'm fine. No, really. I know this is weird. Everyone treating you differently now. It is weird. But it's also clarifying. Clarifying how? I know exactly where I stand now. I know who supported me when it mattered and who only cares now that the success is visible and validated. She nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I should have defended you more. I should have shut down the comments. Yes, I agreed. You should have. At least she didn't make excuses. The party wound down around 10. Dad found me as I was getting ready to leave. Sarah, before you go, I want you to know that I'm proud of you. I always have been. I looked at him steadily. Dad, 2 weeks ago you tried to get me an entry-level IT job because you thought I was delusional and needed to accept reality. He winced. I was wrong. You were. And now you're proud. But the thing is, I'm the same person I was 2 weeks ago. The only thing that changed is your perception. I didn't understand. You didn't try to understand. That's different. I walked to my car, leaving him standing in the driveway. The media attention continued for weeks. I did interviews with Forbes, Fortune, and the Wall Street Journal. I was invited to speak at Stanford and MIT. Venture capital firms offered me partnership positions. Through it all, my family continued reaching out. Texts, calls, emails. All wanting to reconnect, to celebrate, to be part of the success they'd dismissed. I responded politely but distantly. I wasn't interested in punishing them, but I also wasn't interested in pretending the past 8 years hadn't happened. 3 months after the acquisition, I started my next company. Not because I needed the money, but because I loved the work. This time, I made sure to surround myself with people who valued vision over validation, potential over proof. Marcus sent me a long email on my 33rd birthday. It was full of apologies and regrets, acknowledgments of his failures as a brother, promises to do better. I wrote back, I appreciate the apology. But the relationship we had is gone. We can build something new maybe, but it won't look like what came before. And that's okay. He responded, I understand. I'm sorry it took losing you for me to see what I'd lost. My parents tried harder. They wanted to meet for dinner, to visit my new office, to be part of my life. I agreed to occasional meetings, but I kept boundaries firm. They'd made it clear what they thought of me when they believed I had nothing. I couldn't forget that just because circumstances had changed. The story went viral not just because of the acquisition numbers, but because it resonated. Hundreds of people reached out to share their own stories of family members who dismissed their dreams, who demanded they give up on their goals, who were certain they knew best. I became an accidental spokesperson for a specific kind of success. The kind that happens despite your family's disapproval, not because of their support. In interviews, I was always careful to stay measured. I never trashed my family publicly. But I also never pretended everything was fine. Family relationships are complicated, I told a Forbes journalist. Sometimes the people who love you the most are also the people who understand you the least. Learning to trust your own vision, even when everyone around you thinks you're wrong, is one of the hardest and most important skills you can develop. The article ran with the headline, Sarah Chin on building a billion-dollar company while her family begged her to get a real job. A year after the acquisition, I ran into Marcus at a coffee shop. He was with his daughter, my niece Sophia. She was 10 years old now and I barely knew her. Aunt Sarah. She ran up and hugged me. I saw you on TV. Daddy says you're super smart and built a computer company. Something like that, I said. Marcus approached more slowly. Sarah. Good to see you. You too. An awkward pause. Sophia's school is doing a career day, he said. She wanted to know if you'd be willing to come talk to her class? I looked at my niece's excited face. I'd like that, I said. It was a small bridge. But it was something. Because the truth was I'd succeeded. The company was sold. The validation was complete. The numbers were undeniable. My family had been wrong about everything. But that success tasted hollow when eaten alone. And while I couldn't forgive the past or pretend it hadn't happened, maybe I could build something new. Something honest. Something that didn't require me to be less than I was just to make other people comfortable. Email me the details, I told Marcus. I'll check my schedule. The smile on Sophia's face made it worth it. 3 years after the acquisition, NeuralFlow's technology had been integrated into Google's core products, reaching billions of users worldwide. I'd started 2 more companies, both valued in the hundreds of millions. I sat on 5 corporate boards and mentored dozens of young entrepreneurs. My relationship with my family remained complicated. We had dinners occasionally. We attended family events. But there was a distance that hadn't existed before, or maybe it had always been there and I just stopped pretending it wasn't. Marcus and I rebuilt something like a relationship, though it would never be what siblings should have. He'd apologized countless times and I'd accepted each apology. But we both knew that some things once broken don't mend completely. My parents tried. They really did. But there were still moments when I could see them struggling with the reality of who I'd become versus who they'd assumed I was. The moral of the story, if there is one, isn't that I proved my family wrong. It's that I proved myself right. And that mattered more than any external validation ever could. The day Marcus called my startup another failed project, he was expressing what everyone in my family believed. They were certain they understood reality better than I did. They were certain my dreams were delusions. They were wrong. And while the $3.8 billion acquisition was satisfying, the real victory was simpler. I'd built something meaningful. I trusted my vision. I'd refused to let other people's limitations define my potential. That was worth more than any amount of money. Though the money did help make the point undeniable.